Hey guys, welcome to the Area Side Podcast with your hosts, Sophia
D.
And Elena.
We appreciate you guys listening, and we hope you're ready to get on the Area Side. Okay, so the case I'm going to be talking about today is called the Perplexing Kidnapping of Fusako Sano. Are any of you familiar with that one?
No.
No.
Okay, so it actually takes place in Japan. It's a Japanese case. And this is the story of 9-year-old Fusako Sano. On November 13th, 1990, Fusako was a fourth grader living in the city of Sanjo, Japan, which is located in the Niigata prefecture. Fusako, she was about to turn 10 in 2 weeks, so she was very excited. At this point, she's getting older, and she's now old enough to walk home from school alone. But on this day, she decides to watch a baseball game at her school. However, this baseball game will be the last time in a long time that she is ever seen again. After the game ends, Fusako's family expects her to come back home like she always does. However, as the hours continue to pass by and she still hadn't returned home, her family grew more and more worried. By the time 7:45 came around, her parents could no longer ignore the fact that 9-year-old Fusako still hadn't returned home, and so they called the police. A thorough search was then conducted of the area, and by the next day, more than 200 people had helped search the area. And for reference, the city of Sanjo, which is where Fusako lives, it sits inland, but it is near the coast of the Sea of Japan, and it's about a 2-hour drive north from Tokyo. So when you think about that, Fusako was missing, and if she has been taken, there are a lot of port towns nearby she could be taken to, because Japan is an island, and she's also not that far from Tokyo, which is a major city. And sex trafficking within Japan itself is a big problem that the government was and is still trying to fight. But if you were to focus back on Sanjo, its population, they've got about 110,000 people, so it's no small town by any means. And there's also other towns that border Sanjo. But by the third day that Fusako had gone missing, which is on November 15th at this point, over 100 police officers were working to find Fusako. They conducted ground and aerial searches, put up 20,000 posters of Fusako with her name, but unfortunately it led the police nowhere and they had no leads. There was very small group of people who thought that maybe North Korean operatives had kidnapped Fusako, because it had been happening in the area, but nothing ever came from these suspicions, and nothing indicated that this is what had happened to Fusako. There were also people calling in to claim that they were her abductor, but those all proved false, and they just wasted police time. By Christmas, the police had stopped searching for Fusako, but her case still remained open, and no leads were going anywhere at that point. Despite countless searches in numerous locations, factories, warehouses, Fusako was nowhere to be found, and for the next 9 years, her family would have no idea as to what happened to her. Okay, so what do you guys think so far?
So there weren't any cameras or anything to help them at all? I know it's like 33 years ago, but
No, not at all. And there was no cameras. It was right after the baseball game, so they didn't really know where she had.
no one at the school had seen her?
People saw her at the baseball game, it's believed, but she wasn't seen after that.
And what time was she supposed to get home? And then what time did they realize she was she was missing?
So I'm not sure what time she was supposed to get home. It was, she had the baseball game after school, so sometime after that. But by the time 7:45 came around, that's when her parents realized it had been too long for her not to come home, and that they called the police.
Okay. Also, by the way, I am like deathly sick in this podcast, so if I sound very raspy, that's why. So yeah, currently dying.
What does it mean?
What?
What the does this mean?
Oh, I'm just.
They don't fucking care if you're raspy.
I'm just saying, I thought it would be a good thing to note. God forbid it.
Mom doesn't think we should be announcing this on the podcast.
That was so, like, I felt attacked.
Oh my God.
Personal.
You should have seen her face.
I saw
was
her
appalled.
face. She was just like, she looked horrified.
Are we gonna take this out?
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
I just thought, if I'm sounding horrific, just letting everyone know I'm a little bit under the weather.
Let me just drink another glass of wine here.
Okay.
You do what you get
What are you drinking?
A rosé. Not my favorite.
Wow.
What?
It's kind of cliche.
It is what it was in the refrigerator. No one else is drinking it, so I might as well take care of that.
Yeah. She gone. I got my herbal tea over here because, like I said, deathly sick over here.
Well, I'm unintentionally repping the current case I'm doing because I'm drinking some plum sake, so it's very good.
Isn't it really sweet?
It tastes like the church wine we used to drink.
Because I thought that like the communion.
Yeah, no, seriously, it's really good.
How is it ever legal to give kids communion? I
think for like religious reasons.
Is it really true?
It's like a teaspoon of salt.
I get that, but it's still legally like providing
I don't
alcohol
know.
to underage children. So is it like breaking the law but no one cares, or is it like a religious like?
It's a good question, actually. Is it like covered by religious means, or is it just like no one really cares?
I'm not touching that one. Can we move on?
Okay, fine. My bad, Sophia. Take it away.
Do you guys have any like guesses as to what happened to her so far, or?
I mean, either she was kidnapped or she ran away.
I would say she was kidnapped.
Yeah,
That's
it seems
what
like it. It is, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because in this case, at this point, for 9 years, they had very little leads.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like either she ran away, she was kidnapped, or like an accident happened and she like got lost in like the woods or something as she was walking home. But I mean, it's leaning more towards kidnapping, but I can't say for sure.
she was in the woods?
No,
I mean, was that ever mentioned and I missed it?
no,
I just Elena just imagined.
you just a dumb.
You meant to say Elena.
That we will have to edit out. I'm just saying, like, I don't know if there was woods. I was just saying, like, maybe she was walking home. There was, like, really three
Elena
possible.
just inserted woods into her.
Well, I was just using it
imagination.
as an example for an accident that could have happened. I don't know if there was woods, but my point was an accident. Murder, runaway, or kidnapping, runaway, accident.
I will say it's like it's almost as if though she disappeared off face of the earth with as little leads as they had, which is scary to think about how that can just happen sometimes. But
It would be really funny if you're like, okay, so then she was in the woods.
highly unlikely. Highly unlikely.
We'll see.
Okay, let me continue. Okay, so Fusako, she was kidnapped in November of 1990, but fast forward to January of 2000, Fusako is still missing. So 10 years have passed at this point. Well, okay, so actually it's 9 years because it's not been a full year yet. But yeah, November of 1990 to January of 2000, 9 years. Fusako is still missing, but in January of 2000, a 73-year-old woman, she makes a phone call to the Kashiwazaki Public Health Center. We do not know the name of this woman at this point. So actually, we don't know the name of this woman at all. It's never been disclosed in any of the sources I've looked into, but we're just going to call her Nobuyuki's mother because when she makes this phone call, She has a 37-year-old son named Nobuyuki, whom she lives with. And Nobuyuki and Nobuyuki's mother, they live in Kashiwazaki, which is 35 miles away from where Fusako was kidnapped. And when Nobuyuki's mother makes this call to the public health center, it's actually not even the first call she's made to the center. She had actually called the center a few years back due to her son. And when she had called a few years back, before the January 2000 call, she had claimed that her son, Nobuyuki, had been behaving very violently towards her. Now, a few years later, she calls again and says that she's afraid she might be killed by her son, and she's hoping somebody could come by and visit her and help her. So if you stop and think about this woman, Nobuyuki's mother, she's 73 years old, and she's living with her son, who, according to her, on numerous occasions has been violent towards her and has made her feel unsafe enough to actually reach out and ask for help. And a 73-year-old woman is, it's really no match for a 37-year-old man. And the reason I'm bringing this up is,
I was just wondering, what is this health center? Is it just like a crisis line for anyone in need?
To be honest, I'm not really sure what this specific health center or Japanese health center would look like or do. But it's clearly something that is supposed to seemingly help people in need, because she makes that call for help.
Okay.
But so yeah, there's a reason I'm bringing this up. It'll come into a little bit what happens
Sounds
later.
like it was a hotline for help or something, right? It wasn't like a health center like where you go see the doctor.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a hotline, but definitely you can call for help. So maybe, I don't know if that's considered a hotline, but she definitely called for help. So, given that Japan's life expectancy at the time in 2000 was 81 years old, I'm not sure if she would be considered elderly, but she was definitely an older woman. And if the complaints she was making against her son were true, she could have been at risk of facing elderly abuse. So she's vulnerable in some ways, and she was in some form of, it seems like she was in some form of abusive relationship, if what she's calling about is true. So she definitely felt threatened enough to reach out for help. And I'll get into the details of the abuse she was facing a little bit later. So Nobuyuki's mother makes this phone call to the public health center. And this next part, I've heard two different accounts from multiple different sources as to what happened. So I'll tell you both because I really don't know which is true. Some sources say that after the mother made this call to the public health center, the center sends some form of officials to check on her. When they check in on her, they find her son to be acting so awful that they ask the police to come. When the police arrive, that is when they discover a young woman hiding underneath blankets on the second floor of the house. They immediately take her to the hospital, and it is on the way to the hospital that this young woman shares that her name is Fusako Sano.
Wait, how is he acting, real quick? You said he was acting horribly. Like, what? Did they have, like, more detail on what that meant?
Well,
Like, just suspicious?
in this account, no, but in the next account, I believe so. So let me just get to that.
Okay.
So then the other account says, the other way of this, how it unfolds, says that the police weren't called right away, but that it was the center staff that had to deal with Nobuyuki. And this account says that they arrived when Nobuyuki was sleeping, and they tried getting Nobuyuki to wake up, but they had to open his door. Then when they opened the door, he woke up and he started screaming, and he asked them why they were in his room. And when the staff explained, he went into a rage, and they then had to subdue him by injecting him with a sedative.
Okay.
So maybe it was that they told him, they were doing a check, wellness or health check, and he went into a rage, and maybe that's why the police had to be called, or they had to inject him. I don't know which account is true because I found it in both of them in multiple sources. But these are the two different possibilities of what happened at this point. So,
however, it does appear that he did act kind of, I don't know, just
odd.
He was acting odd
Mm-hmm.
at some point when these people came. So,
well, he definitely, you're right. He definitely seemed to have been acting, erratically or, violently in some way. And
Suspicious, maybe.
something. He
Yeah.
was not acting normal. And so, I think I said that he went into a rage and they subdued him by injecting him with a sedative. And because of that, Nobuyuki fell asleep and they took him to a hospital. They also saw that there was something moving under a blanket and they found Fusako. Fusako wanted to stay at the home, supposedly, but they brought her to the hospital anyway and called the police. The police received a call about an unemployed man at the hospital who was causing a disturbance. The police show up. And Fusako goes up to the police and identifies herself as Fusako Sano. And then she tells them, I was abducted near the school by a man who forced me into a car. For 9 years, I didn't take a step out of the house. Today, I went out for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah, so those were the two accounts. Fusako, it's a good thing that she still remembered after all those years who she was and was very coherent and was able to make such a declarative statement right away. I'm also curious I couldn't find anything that said, but what the mother's initial phone call a few years prior, what that situation was and what happened differently this time to where they found Fusako this time versus not, a few years before this.
Maybe. Oh, you can go ahead.
I was wondering if the mother had any questions to why Fusako was in her house.
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Yeah, so that's a good question because some people wonder about that too, and I think people have different opinions on that. I mean, I have my own opinion on that, which I'll get into, because there are some more details that can give you some more clarity as to whether or not she may or may not have known something. So I'll just continue on.
But real quick, I just want to double check. So, eventually he was put into the hospital. Police were called, and
that was just the second account.
The second account.
But
okay.
I'm assuming that. Well, yeah, I don't know if he went to the hospital in the first account, but the second account is he went to the hospital.
And eventually, the police were called, and she identified herself to the police. Right when they showed. Okay. And then the mother, like, where's the mother, his mother in these two stories? With talking with the police as well?
I'm assuming she's at home. I don't know for sure. If they actually, got into the house, I'm assuming she let them in.
Okay.
Unless she somehow gave them a key and left. But I'm assuming that she's actually there.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about Nobuyuki's character, or who Nobuyuki is, and give some context to him and to the life that he lives with his mother. Nobuyuki Sato was born in 1963 and lived in Kashiwazaki City, which is where he is currently living when they find Fusako in his room. So he's born there and still lives there at this point in time. He grew up in, I believe, the same house he was in later with Fusako and his mother. Nobuyuki's father was a driver for a large company, but then started his own business. His father got married in his 60s, and then Nobuyuki was born. So Nobuyuki was born to an older father. And because Nobuyuki's father was an older father, he was teased at school about this. I don't know why, but he just was. And because of the age gap between him and his father, they were not close. Nobuyuki's mom worked for an insurance company, and she was said to be very loving. Some people of the town believed she was too nurturing, since even when Nobuyuki became an adult, she would buy him anything he wanted and spoil him. Mm-hmm. And Nobuyuki, he lived a very privileged life. He had his own upstairs floor in his house and could buy anything he wanted. According to others, he basically lived the life of a sheltered only child. But Nobuyuki likely inherited a problem from his father, which was that his father was obsessed with cleanliness and was seen washing his cars obsessively. And Nobuyuki also ended up having an issue with cleanliness. So to paint a picture, Nobuyuki's dad is much older and also has some sort of mental disorder, according to sources. His mom also had a mental disorder, often had to go to hospitals herself, but it's not exactly clear what mental disorder she had. Supposedly, because of this, Nobuyuki was afraid to go to school. I'm not sure if it was because of bullying or because he didn't feel like he had a stable home environment, but he was afraid of school. So there was definitely a lot of difficulties for him earlier on during his school years, with his mom and dad going through mental disorders and struggles, and him struggling with that. After leaving high school, Nobuyuki started working at an automobile parts factory, but on his way to work one day, he got caught in a spider web, and he felt so dirty and so traumatized by this incident that he went back home and never worked a day in his life after that, which it seems like after that he became a recluse in his house, so he definitely struggled to feel safe in school and also struggled to feel safe working in the world. So he's having a hard time integrating into society and never really does. And because of his obsession with cleanliness, his fear of dirt, his compulsion of not wanting to be physically close to other people, which is kind of ironic in some ways, and, given Fusako, he avoided people altogether except for Fusako, which is interesting. It's like he decided to avoid the entire world except one person, almost like he needed to take someone if he was going to banish everyone.
Well, to me, he sounds like he has a mental disorder.
Definitely. I mean, of course, we can't diagnose, but
no,
definitely
but I mean,
sounds
both
like
parents, and then
on.
he's acting. There's certain behaviors there.
Right.
I'm not trying to diagnose him. It just appears that way.
Right. He's definitely struggling, especially because of the spider web. Walked into it one day and never worked a day in his life. It was so.
Yeah, I mean, I hate. I'm terrified of spiders, but even that's.
Oh, we know.
Even that's like.
It's your excuse if not picking up the dogs after they go potty.
Okay.
And then I'm forced to.
First of all, you don't even do it. Second of all,
I do. Don't you dare say that.
It's not. It's just like they're just nasty. And but to not even like to go forward and say that's it, I'm not working a day in my life after that, that's definitely shows that there's some sort of possible imbalance.
Well, and I think there was, and I think also it was enabled by his mom too, for some because he was privileged enough to be able to
do
allow
that.
his peers, take over his life, to not have to work.
Exactly.
Some people wouldn't even be able to, even if they were terrified. Right. Then Nobuyuki's father dies in 1989 in a long-term care facility. He had actually, at that point, been kicked out of the house by Nobuyuki. Neighbors said that Nobuyuki had become so violent after his father died, he would break his house's doors and windows, and his mother also had bruises and a black eye. He also used a stun gun on his mother. This abuse that Nobuyuki does on his mom leads her to suffer physically and mentally. His mom did call the hospital to report the domestic abuse, but nothing was done. So it seems like his mom is, she's enabling him, but to I guess allowing him to live in the house, but she's also in this abusive relationship with him. So I think there's like a power dynamic where he has some control over her too.
Yeah, it's almost like she is his punching bag for any like anger or anything like that comes up, and she just doesn't know how to like. I think he knows that he can get away with anything. Because of that, he's taken it to the extreme.
Yeah, I think so, and I would have to say that I think this abuse that she's going through also plays into her, the experience of Fusako and all of that as well, which I'll get into soon. So, Fusako, at this point, they've found Fusako. She's taken to the hospital. She's now 19 years old, and she is very thin, dehydrated, exhausted. She has jaundice, and she can barely walk, which is not surprising when you learn that she has been kept in a single room for the past 9 years. In terms of her mental state, she had PTSD And it said she still had some childlike tendencies, which is honestly not surprising given that she's had no socialization for the past 9 years, except with Nobuyuki. So now we know she's been kept in this room in the same house for over 9 years. The next question is, what happened to her during this time? What was her life like? And how did she come to be there? So Nobuyuki kidnapped her after the baseball game by pulling her into his car. She was walking home and nobody happened to see him kidnap her. He later told a police officer that he picked Fusako because he thought she was cute. And because of that comment, my first thought is, was this kidnapping sexually motivated? Well, as far as we know, there has not been any coverage or acknowledgement that Fusako was sexually assaulted in any way. Now, I don't know why. I don't know if Nobuyuki did sexually assault her and that was not ever released to the public, or I don't know if he didn't sexually assault her at all. Nothing's ever been said about anything sexual happening, so I don't know. One source clarified that she for sure wasn't sexually assaulted, but others said no sexual assault was ever mentioned, but didn't give a strong confirmation of it. Nobuyuki himself, he claims that he didn't rape Fusako because he thought of her as a friend or family member, which I don't know what to think of that, but he is a really weird guy in my opinion. So, however, I do know something else. A year before Fusako was kidnapped, Nobuyuki violently assaulted another girl. And surprisingly, despite this, he was never considered as a potential suspect in Fusako's disappearance. When he kidnapped this other girl a year prior, he was spotted near a school when he attempted to grab her and take her away. But then a friend spotted her and screamed for help, and a nearby teacher ran and tackled Nobuyuki and called the police. Nobuyuki was arrested and convicted of attempting to kidnap the girl. However, since this was his first offense, he was given a 1-year prison term and released. One of the reasons he actually decides to take Fusako, he later says, is because she was alone. He had learned from his previous attempt to not get caught, which the best way to do that. That scared me.
I pressed this so. I don't even know what.
Wait, did everyone hear that?
Yeah, it's. Hold on, there we go. First of all, my mic was off this whole time, but yeah. Yeah, no, that was I pressed a little. It's a little special effects button I have here, and I accidentally pressed it with my hand. So my bad.
Should I go again or?
Yeah, just go.
Okay. So Nobuyuki, he tries to kidnap this other girl, but he fails. And so one of the reasons he kidnaps Fusako is because she's alone. He had learned from his previous attempt to not get caught. And the best way to do that is to make sure no one is around. And the way that Nobuyuki kidnapped Fusako was, first he made sure that it was just the two of them. Nobody was there to witness it. Then he also threatened her with a knife to get in his car. So by threatening her with a knife, he was able to put her in the trunk of his car. So we now know that Nobuyuki, he has a pattern of hurting women, hurting his mom, and these two other girls, Fusako, who he kidnapped, and the other girl he's tried to kidnap. He was violent with Fusako at times during her entire captivity, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But I guess my next question is, if someone kidnaps a child but doesn't sexually assault them, we want to understand why. At least I do. Nobuyuki didn't sell her to anyone, and no one saw her or visited her during her captivity, so it's not like he was selling her or using her for a profit or anything like that. And he definitely didn't treat her or pretend like she was his own child. So, my first question is, okay, why even kidnap somebody and take a child? Why is he doing that? What is he using her for, especially if it's not sexually motivated, potentially? I did try and do some research as to why strangers kidnap children. I found something that David Finkelhor said, who is the director of Crimes Against Children Research Center. He said that the main motive for stranger kidnapping is sexual assault. Kids who are abducted by strangers tend to be not really young children, but children who may be sought after as a sex object. So I did some further research and found that typically kidnappers have a need for power and manipulation. And if you're holding someone captive for over 9 years in a single room, that's definitely a situation where you're trying to assert your power over someone else. And that's all I could gather as to why someone would kidnap a child and supposedly not sexually assault them. So, I mean, Nobuyuki definitely had an issue with control and power for sure. And I don't know if that had anything to do with him kidnapping Fusako, but I'm just curious, what are your guys' thoughts if he actually did kidnap her but never like sexually assault her? Like, to me, that's just so strange.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's weird. Not saying that like assaulting children is normal, but I just think it's strange because it's like, to me, I don't know like what their other motivation would be, if not like, I mean, money or anything like that. So, I mean, I guess it's just power, or maybe like a little bit of like he's enjoying the pain that he's inflicting on her. So maybe maybe partially it's like a little sadistic. But it's definitely weird, and I don't know if I would 100% believe she was never assaulted. I mean, I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I question that too.
Yeah, I'm not like, I mean, she was really young, so I wouldn't be surprised if they kept that private, because it's, you know, she's alive and it's her life, and I understand that. So, but I'm not 100% certain that it's one thing or another. But given the fact that no one's really mentioned it, and if it isn't, you know, motivated sexually, then I would say maybe it is kind of what you were mentioning, which is power, or maybe like a little like sadistic, just like knowing that he kind of gets pleasure, not from like actually assaulting her, but from knowing that he's causing her pain, like physical pain in other ways. So I know there's that, but I'm not 100% sure.
I still need to go back to what his mom thought was going on in his room.
Yeah, actually, I was wondering that too.
I just don't get it.
Did
There's some other person there. I mean, he must leave. There must be a toilet flushing up somewhere.
Or
I just
footsteps.
I mean, I'm just not understanding this story.
You know what's funny is that I knew when I was researching this, I knew you were gonna have a hard time.
I was wondering that too. It was so. What did she ever give an answer on that?
She says well, I'll get into it. I'm getting there.
Okay, we'll wait. I'll be
wait.
patient.
Yeah.
I just realized it could be she was too scared to say anything.
That's why I was also mentioning the whole abuse situation, because I think that plays into part of it. In my opinion.
I mean, her calling could have been her way of trying to save her.
I think even that was risky for her, given that.
True.
But I definitely think in terms of her kidnapping her, I mean, I was also wondering if he did it just to have somebody as company because he's so isolated. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. That's just me guessing. So, okay. Well, let's talk about Fusako's life in captivity and what it was actually like. Mm-hmm. For the first few months of her captivity, Fusako's hands and feet were tied in restraints with tape. If she tried to run away or even just get off her bed, Nobuyuki would hit her. He would also hit her if she didn't respond to him. And sometimes he would even do martial arts on her until she screamed. Nobuyuki would terrorize her by using a stun gun on her and threatening her with a knife until she became too scared to run away. Now that I'm reading this, I'm like, how did Nobuyuki's mom not hear her if she was screaming at some point?
I think she knew. I think she was just too scared and probably a little bit too old to do anything. Yeah, and I think that probably also motivated her calling.
Also, if the mom was abused,
she's a victim herself.
She's a victim herself, and fear sometimes takes over in victims. So I'm assuming, but I'd like to hear more of the story.
Yeah. Okay. So, Nobuyuki would use a stun gun on her and threaten her with a knife. So she became too scared to run away, and after this, Nobuyuki took off her restraints. But at that point, he had scared Fusako too much to even think about running away. So, he told her, "You can't leave this room. You will live with me, and I will be here all the time. If you try to escape, I will kill you and bury you in the mountains or throw your body in the sea." So, after the first few months of her being tied up, she's now no longer tied up. Nobuyuki forced Fusako to videotape horse races for him to watch, and if she did it in the wrong way,
in his eyes, she would get beaten for it. During her entire time in captivity, it's estimated that Fusako was hit about 200 to 300 times. Nobuyuki cut her hair.
Wait, total or a day?
Total.
Okay.
I also don't know how she would be recording the horse races, quote, the wrong way, but he seems weird, so.
Wait, like recording it like on the pressing like back when, before Hulu and, Netflix, like recording it like while it was playing live on the TV, or recording it with a camera, like in person?
I don't know. He just said he forced her to videotape horse races for him to watch, and if she did it wrong, she would get beaten for it. And I don't know what wrong is, but.
Huh.
Well, I'm assuming that she couldn't leave the room. She was recording it on TV. And wrong could be he wanted it to start exactly 5 minutes before it started and end 5 minutes afterwards. And if she didn't that way, that could be even wrong for someone like him.
Right. Yeah, because, I wouldn't be surprised if he has, like, OCD and he likes to have things very, like, specific. So I can see that.
I would not be surprised either.
Yeah.
Okay, Nobuyuki cut her hair and gave her men's clothes to wear. They were his clothes, but if for some reason they didn't fit, he would then shoplift clothes for her because it would be too suspicious otherwise, if he was buying women's clothes. Except for underwear.
Suspicious for who?
I'm assuming for his mom if she... Actually, I think he just thought it would be suspicious in his own mind if he was... buying in his mind. I think I remember reading somewhere, I could be wrong, but I think he thought it would be suspicious if he was buying clothes for a woman, but not underwear, because it's not unusual for men to buy women's underwear, especially if they have like a girlfriend or something.
Okay. I would guess it'd be the other way. I think it'd be more normal to buy women's clothes and weirder to buy women's underwear, but what do I know?
Also, he's not living in a little town. He can go and buy a child's clothing when he first got her in. He could, pretend it's his child. So there must be some big disorder in that mind of his.
Yeah, especially for the rules of he can buy underwear, but not if he has to shoplift all the other clothes. Something's going on. I found in one source that the only time she could ever leave the room was if she was so dirty that she needed a bath. But I also found in another source she only got one bath during her entire time in captivity, which is when she had which is when she had fallen and gotten herself dirty. I have questions about that, like where did she fall in that room to get herself so dirty? But for her sake, I hope she got more than one bath during that entire time.
Could she have fallen on her own, like, bowel movements? Like, did she have her own, restroom? Or was she, like, forced to, like, go in a bucket?
Okay, so...
Or you're going to get to that later?
I am going to get to that,
okay.
But I think it's... Yeah, I'll get to that real quick.
Okay.
But in order to get her to go to the bath, he took off her clothes and blindfolded her and then bathed her himself. And so the next part I'm going to tell you, which leads into what we were just talking about, is interesting because it may explain why he only allowed her to take a bath once, if that account of events is true. But some sources say that Nobuyuki didn't like dirty things, and so he avoided the bathroom, and that he avoided the bathroom so much that he placed bags outside his room for them to use as a toilet. Which, at that point, I'm like, if you're still concerned about cleanliness, isn't putting toilet bags outside your room less sanitary than using, like, a toilet, like the bathroom? And also,
wait, I'm confused. So he thought the bathroom was so dirty.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's your bathroom. Like, you're in charge of how clean it is.
That he would put toilet paper bags. Wait, toilet paper.
He would put
bags
outside their room for them to use as a toilet.
Him and what about his mother? Did
he was on the upstairs floor.
Okay.
The upstairs
this is just for him and her then.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so it sounds to me like he's completely off the deep end. And I don't think we're going to make logic of the way he thought about bathroom and dirtiness and all that. I think we're just going to accept this.
Maybe, yeah. We got a point there.
Just accept it, everybody. Let's move on.
Okay. Nobuyuki, he also homeschooled Fusako. But given that he wasn't very sophisticated himself, I doubt the strength of the education he taught her. He also kept the room Nobuyuki was in very dark, which is why she had jaundice when she was rescued. Fusako was given somewhere between 1 to 3 microwave meals a day. Some sources said 1 meal, and others said 3 meals, but she received instant soup or bento boxes. Nobuyuki allowed her to start eating a rice ball daily after 6 years, which is like, wow, thanks. Like, just one rice ball.
Yeah.
And this is because the reason he even started to give her this one rice ball after 6 years is because she had a bruise on her leg and he thought she may be becoming diabetic. And living with Nobuyuki, Fusako's weight dropped from 100 pounds down to 83 pounds.
Wow.
So yeah, it was common for Fusako to faint from malnutrition.
How tall is she?
That I don't know.
I wonder if being there stunted her growth as well.
Yeah, because she was 9, almost 10.
Yeah.
You know,
and then she was tied down for a while too. And I mean, not allow without any sunlight. I mean,
yeah, I would not be surprised if it stunted her growth.
Yeah.
Fusako, she also had a hard time walking due to her hands and feet atrophying. Fusako was allowed to listen to the radio, and towards the end of her captivity, she was allowed to watch TV too. Like I said earlier, Fusako wasn't chained after the first 3 months, and it wasn't unusual, actually, for Nobuyuki to leave her door unlocked. Despite this, Fusako never tried to escape. Fusako told the police, "I was too scared to escape," and eventually lost the energy to escape.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think she was just really malnourished.
Mm-hmm.
So now, while Fusako, this is when we're going to start talking about the mother. While Fusako is living on the second floor with Nobuyuki, supposedly Nobuyuki's mother had no idea of this. His mother claimed that at any time she would try to go upstairs, Nobuyuki would become violent towards her, and supposedly she had not been allowed to go into his room since he was a teenager because he had prevented it. So I wonder if she, became suspicious just trying to get up the stairs and by the fact that he wouldn't allow her. And Nobuyuki's mother made Fusako's meals as well. So, she wasn't just making, she was making all these extra meals. So if I were to give her the benefit of the doubt, maybe she thought her son's appetite had increased from before.
Wait a second. They're giving the girl microwave meals, so she's not cooking extra.
But there more people are. There's more.
No, microwave meals. That means someone's buying it. If she's cooking meals from scratch, he's buying frozen food and microwaving it.
It said she was making them, so I think she's
the one that's cooking it.
Yeah, the one that's making, actually heating it up.
Okay.
I think it just what the article meant by cooking was probably just the heating it up part.
Yeah,
is my guess. Or and the rice ball, maybe she was the one that would make that.
That could be.
Yeah, so that's a good thing to make, a good assumption to make. So this next part is really interesting. Nobuyuki's mother would also buy feminine products for Fusako. So, in my opinion, Nobuyuki's mother is buying feminine products, and she definitely doesn't need them at 73. I'm going to make a good guess. And Nobuyuki for sure isn't using them for his own personal needs. So she would have to wonder who is using them. She would have to wonder. There is no way she would have bought these feminine products for him that he was asking her to buy and not at least wondered why and what he's using these for.
Yeah.
But if you pair this with the fact that she wasn't allowed upstairs, I think it's enough for her to make a connection and be concerned to think something is going on, especially since he did assault a girl a year before he abducted Fusako. Actually, I don't even know if she knew about that. I think she would have, because I think he was in prison for a year, so she must have.
Yeah.
I'm guessing she knew something.
But who knows what he told her?
That's true. But for her to think, she'd have to assume he's not using these products just for I don't know, for some art project or whatever. She'd have to wonder, why does he even need these feminine products. Maybe she didn't want to say anything because, again, he kicked out his dad, and his dad was forced into the facility. So maybe she was afraid Nobuyuki would do the same for her if she said something, and then nothing would come from it, and that he would kill her.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously not 100% sure, if she... I think the signs were there, whether she wanted to accept them or not is, that's a different conversation. But I think if she did know, she didn't do anything out of fear because she herself is a victim.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I mean, she called... I mean, I want to say she was maybe too afraid to do something, but she did call the public
she
health
did.
center.
That was, well, I mean... I think that's why she didn't do anything for a while because it took. I think that was her doing something. That was her finally.
You're saying like nothing came from it, so maybe she was like, well,
because I think that she was already limited. She probably doesn't know a lot of resources that are available, as most people don't. I mean, and she probably did what she could, didn't hear anything, and then eventually tried again. I think that was her way of trying to help herself and whatever other situation was going on, whether she knew about the girl he had or not. But I think she finally was able to get the strength to, and I think that strength was calling the hotline.
She's an abused victim. When you're in that situation, you can't see anything in front of you, and we on the outside can say, why didn't she do that? Why didn't she do that? But when you're in that situation, it's very hard to be able to see things and make decisions.
Right.
So in some ways, I don't like to say this, but we need to give her a break because I'm assuming it could have been also that her husband was abusive. We don't know that. Her son is abusive. I mean, there's a cycle here. And she also has mental illness. So
yeah,
I think there's just a complete dysfunctionality in this family, and she just felt maybe powerless or something. So there's something going on.
I mean, she really couldn't do anything. I mean, in my opinion, I think she was almost in another way like another kidnapped victim. Like, sure, she might be able to leave the house and whatnot, but I didn't think she had much free will.
I don't think she recognized her free will. If she was abused, especially if, his father abused her, she could have not even recognized her ability to do something.
She also could have been abused as a child, which just adds to everything.
Right.
So it's one abuse after the other. I'm not saying she did, but I mean, we just don't know much. But it does sound sad, actually.
Yeah. I mean, her life must have been miserable living with him.
Right. I mean, she did try to cry out for help.
Yeah.
2 times.
Right.
That's true.
So, I mean, it's difficult to understand unless you're in that situation.
Yeah. So let's turn to Nobuyuki as a person and the aftermath of Fusako's rescue. Nobuyuki was arrested, and while he's awaiting trial, doctors determined that, shocker, he had OCD, and he also had schizoid-type personality disorder.
Do you mean schizoid? Or
schizoid, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yes, SCH, schizoid.
Okay, because it sounded like shitoid, and I was like...
You need to say that again.
As a psych major...
Mom, we can't hear you because you're not by the mic.
We're going to say this again, aren't we?
I don't know. Just put your mic on, Mom. But okay, so schizoid, you said?
Yes, schizotype personality disorder. At first, he was deemed unfit to stand trial, and he was claiming to be having hallucinations. But eventually, he was deemed fit to stand trial because it was deemed that he could tell right from wrong. That meant he could stand trial, so he did. There were only 27 available seats in the public court, but over 2,200 people showed up to attend. And during the court proceedings, it was said that Fusako's dad was staring at Nobuyuki often throughout the hearings. Nobuyuki did end up pleading guilty to abducting Fusako and was sentenced to 14 years in prison. He was released in April 2015, but only 2 years later, he was found dead in his apartment, and I do not know what he died from. So now let's turn to Fusako and what life has been like for her since being freed from captivity. After Fusako's fingerprints were matched and confirmed, she was reunited with her parents. When Fusako's mother first saw her at the hospital, she called out Fusako's name and hugged her. Her parents didn't recognize her because she had changed so much from 9 to 19. They were happy to have her back and had never given up hope. It sounded like throughout that trial, her father was, really angry, and rightfully so, at Nobuyuki. But then Fusako, she returned home to live with her family, and she now works in her family's rice field. So at least she's, getting all that outside time that she didn't have for so long. She likes to be alone, and she also likes soccer and photography. Unfortunately, in 2007, Fusako suffered another tragedy when she had to watch her dad drown in a pond while swimming. But as far as we know, she's still with her family and working in the rice field, and that is the perplexing kidnapping of Fusako Sano.
So wait, her father ended up passing away from the drowning?
Yeah, he ended up passing away from the...
Okay. Did she ever married?
I don't know if she ever married or not. That's all I have on her.
Okay, because at this point, she's probably 43 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know anything else other than this. So I'm not sure if she married. I don't know, much more than this. That's all I could find. But I hope she's happy, and I hope she's enjoying being free.
Did she ever get any therapy to assist her? I mean, that's traumatic, what she went through for 10-some years. I was just wondering if that is something that they mentioned that at all.
No, they did not mention that at all. This is all I know, honestly, on what's happened since. So I don't know if she got any therapy. I definitely went through quite a lot of trauma, so I hope she's
Doing well.
Yeah. But
that's a sad story to be taken away and treated like that and then go back.
But I will say it's also kind of nice to hear a story where the person actually survived. And also, because a lot of times you hear these cases where they go missing for like a decade or so and they're just gone and you just never find even a body or anything. So to not only find out what happened and for her to be alive and make it back like safe is amazing. It's shocking.
Yeah, it is shocking, and it makes you wonder how many people who are missing and nothing's ever been found. Like,
right, or
what
actually,
happened to them? Like, are they living? Haven't been kidnapped and they're still alive? Like, you don't.
Right. I mean, I bet statistically, like her being alive is probably very slim.
Low.
Yeah, very low.
Yeah, because if she'd never been found, I would have thought, oh, she probably died.
Right. She was taken. Yeah. So, and it makes you wonder, like, how many others are like that, and where are they?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, but it could literally be your neighbor who's got somebody.
Right. You don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy and sad, but.
Thank you, Sophia. That was an interesting story.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, I liked getting a Japanese case and learning a little bit about that. I mean, it seems like wherever it is in the world, it's monsters are still out there, and it's kind of the same. It's not, doesn't matter where it happens.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, that's the case of Fusako Sano, and yeah, we appreciate everyone who is listening. Thank you for tuning in to the Erie Side Podcast. And with that, we hope you all have a great day.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Be kind.